right, hello everyone. Welcome to this workshop around Morpho Blue, where we revisit it as we've added more functionality. And we will just review kind of the things that we talked about previously in our other Morpho Blue workshop, and then we'll talk a little bit about the changes and strategies. So if you haven't yet watched the other Morpho Blue video, we will review most of what we talked about in that one, but feel free to also watch that one to get a comprehensive understanding of Morpho Blue. So let's get right into it. So we will review what is Morpho Blue. We'll talk about what products are available. We will talk about for Furucombo the Morpho V1 and V2 integration. So what actions are currently supported and what are the limitations. We will talk about supported markets, strategies, some metrics, a short demo, and then just references for your information if you need to cite any of the things that are talked about in today's workshop. So what is then Morpho Blue? So Morpho Blue is essentially just a lending protocol. It's a newer lending protocol in that some of the benefits are better for users when compared to previous lending protocols. And that benefit comes in the manner of trustlessness. So anyone can create a pool and all risk is isolated to each pool. So that's a little bit different than previous lending markets that we've seen. Efficiency is far higher, meaning that the loan to value ratios can be higher for Morpho. And so therefore you're getting better interest rates and things like that, and then scalable. So anyone can create a market with any type of asset and add any kind of liquidity, trading volume, things like that. So really, really cool. I'll just read through their statement here. So Morpho Blue is a trustless and efficient lending primitive with permissionless market creation. It enables the deployment of minimal and isolated lending markets. Each pool contains only one collateral, one loan, and a determined loan to value ratio. This means that risk is isolated to each pool. So just a summary there. So where are we at today? So Morpho today sits at just under 3 billion in TVL, or total value locked, and we see just over $1 billion in borrowed fees. So we can see based on the chart in the last year, we've seen massive, massive growth, about 6 times growth since last April, since last July, things like that. So um, people are switching their assets to Morpho to take advantage of some of these benefits. And as products are on the market longer, people get less worried about the security risk. Things feel safer, so there's a lower resistance to switching funds now that Morpho has become a large player in the market. So what kind of products do they have? So one product they have that's pretty cool is you can asset switch directly to Morpho using their, I guess, asset switcher. So if you have a lending position on Compound or an Aave, you can deposit with their asset switcher automatically with either to the borrow page or the earn page. More specifically, I wanted to talk about what the differences are between borrow and earn. So borrow is like their traditional lending market. This is going to be lower cost, higher loan to value ratio, and you can use any asset as I previously mentioned. And the earn tab is more like a vault. So this is curated risk, better yield, and transparent. So vault and borrow kind of work in conjunction. Um, but they are a little bit different. Earn is more related to kind of single-sided deposit staking and then earning some benefit from that. Whereas the borrow tab, you will deposit some asset and then you'll be able to borrow from that at a high ratio. So currently, Furucombo supports, we'll call it Morpho V1, and this is support for Morpho Borrow tab. So if we go back up here, this is going to be the lending market. So lower costs, higher loan to value ratio in any asset. We don't currently support the vaulting. So we support, in terms of functionalities, deposit, borrow, repay, and withdraw. And we also support leverage and deleverage. And now we also support open position. So open position is like looping. You'll be able to take a deposited asset, borrow some asset, take the borrowed asset, swap it to the deposited asset, and re-borrow it up to the threshold, basically. Whatever um, amount of leverage you want up to the utilization rate. So typically at most Morpho pools are about 86% or higher. So we'll see about a 5x leverage on that. And when you loop it, the cool thing is you're not taking in any inherent risk, because you're looping the same asset back into the position. So, for example, if you do staked ETH and you borrow wrapped ETH, then you know the risk is going to be minimal. So, of course, there is going to be some inherent risk based on if that asset depegs. But typically, what we see with looping is you're borrowing kind of the same asset and swapping that back into the original position. So the point of this is to gain something like points, extend your position a little bit more, but you also need to be aware of the borrow rate. So we'll go kind of into the strategies a little bit in detail at the end here. So for V2, we will support debt swap and collateral swap. We're not there yet. We expect that sometime this year. So then what are the limitations? So the limitations are currently no earn feature functionality, no support on create mode. So we only support Morpho on the lending dashboard. And then, of course, because V2 is not released, we don't currently support debt swap or collateral swap features. So what are the supported markets then? So supported markets, we have quite a few here. We got 3 pages worth of supported markets. I've put all the details here for your reference. So typically, we will see, for example, with wrapped ETH, we will see a loan to value ratio of 94.5%. This means you can borrow up to 94.5% of the deposited position, which is really, really high in lending today. We will earn a deposit APY of 3.16%. Of course, this is changing. I wrote all this in yesterday, so when, uh, depending on how things have changed in the market, these rates will change. So the deposit APY in this case is coming from the staked ETH. So all staked ETH will earn some staking rewards, for validating the network, and that currently is 3.16%. And then we see a borrow APY of 2.44%. So we see here, just based on the quick data, we can see that there's an opportunity here to loop our position and earn some extra APY. So it'd be the difference between the deposit APY minus the borrow APY multiplied by the leverage. So if we do 5x and we see a point, what is that, 0.6% per base position, we can go 0.6 times 5, and that will give us additional 3% APY over the base position if we don't borrow. So that's pretty interesting. For example, if we do wrap BTC USDT and we try to loop, our borrow APY is far substantial compared to our deposit APY, so we will be incurring quite a few fees. Now, if we look down to something like WEETH, so the way we read these markets on the left here, so WEETH, that will be the deposited asset, that will be your collateral, and then WETH, or the asset on the right, will be the one that you borrow. So for the WEETH and many of these other ones, OSETH, EasyETH, these are all restaked assets. So now in Ethereum, we have kind of a base layer, and then we have another layer called the restaking layer, or the Egan layer, or whatever you want to call it. And then that's where you can kind of go down another level to another layer and earn more rewards. So for example, WEETH, you're earning the EtherFi points, and that will give you potential airdrop in the future. And you're also earning Eigenlayer points, which will earn you the Eigenlayer token. So many of these restaked assets will have some kind of their own point system, some kind of fee or revenue sharing to try to get people in to deposit assets into their restaking Ethereum protocol. And then that protocol will typically have a pool on Morpho that's independent from each other that offers some kind of loan to value ratio, deposit, and then borrowed asset tied to it. So, for example, we have, go to the next page here. We have many, many options for you. Wrapped Origin ETH, so that's a very small borrow APY. So there's some ways you can play around with this. For example, Origin ETH, we're gonna get, I believe I looked yesterday, 3.84% on the deposit, and we see a borrow cost of 0.95. So this is a very, very good candidate to loop. So you could borrow, say, 5x leverage on the wrapped ETH, deposit it back into Origin ETH, and now you can gain the difference between 3.84 and 0.95 per base asset multiplied by the leverage ratio. So there's a really, really good opportunity there. Next, we see a WE ETH by US dollars, and that is a borrow ratio on the USDC by 60%. So this is one that you want to stay away from. So I've provided all the supported markets here. Now, it really just depends on what your, for example, risk profile is, which kind of assets you want to diversify into, which ones are giving you kind of the um, best point system for depositing, and then have the lowest cost of borrowing on an asset where you can swap it back into a pool. You could also borrow an asset that has a low borrow rate on one of these pools, take that asset and buy a different staked asset and deposit that in. Take that and deposit that into a vault. One of the vaults could be paying really, really good in terms of single-side staking. So there's a few different options you can do there for the asset you borrow. If you are going to do lending borrowing, I typically recommend that you don't just lend, you also do some borrowing and take advantage of being able to achieve a higher capital efficiency or capital threshold. Great. So again, all the listed markets are here. You can find them directly on the Furucombo interface as well. But this just gives you a quick idea of what's available and what's out there. So we support quite a few markets. So what then are the strategies? So we have loop position, open position. So as I mentioned, your deposit benefits want to outweigh the borrow cost. So one strategy for looping, for example, is depositing staked wrapped ETH. You can borrow DAI. You can swap DAI to the staked wrapped ETH and deposit staked wrapped ETH up to a limit. Again, because you're borrowing DAI here and swapping to staked wrapped ETH, you are going to take on some liquidation risk. If, for example, ETH drops below the cost that you originally borrowed the funds at, you're going to be subject to some fluctuations in the market, depending on how much ETH goes down based on the debts that you have. So, for example, one ETH deposit can be longed up to 5x. This will be a 1.14 health factor or an 87% utilization rate. This means a 14% change in the ETH price will cause a liquidation. So, assuming no liquidation risk, we can earn a net APY of 6.68% because the deposit is greater value than the borrow cost. So here is an idea of a loop strategy that could be done to earn you some net APY. Again, I wouldn't go right up to 5x in this case because a 14% change in ETH price based on the stablecoin price could happen in a single day. So I would give myself a little bit more room, a little bit more chance to react there. There are protocols out there that allow you to take your position and manage it based on some function. So if it gets to a health factor of 1.1, it will either repay your position or close your position for you. So those options are available as well and are strategies that people take into consideration. A next kind of strategy is a leverage position. So you can long and you can short on Furucombo. So leverage your position against the borrowed asset. So as shown above, you can take a stable coin to go long or short. So this allows you to hedge your position, and it also allows you to amplify your rewards. So Morpho rewards, Egan rewards, any kind of restaking protocol rewards such as EtherFi, Swell, things like that. And then a lot of these pools on the borrow page also give Morpho tokens for a future Morpho airdrop. So sometimes that's deposit, sometimes that's borrow, sometimes that's borrow and deposit. Each pool is individual, and you have to check directly on the Morpho page for which ones will earn you the Morpho tokens. And then the last strategy that we can talk about is the difference between assets and how to take advantage of potential returns. So know which restaking ETH, for example, you want to deposit and which one will earn you potential rewards. So there's a lot of different options here. We have EtherFi, we have KelpDAO, we have Renzo, we have Swell, Rockpool, Stakewise, and Origin. So what does this mean? Which ones are giving you the best rate? Which ones are taking on more inherent risk? Which ones are passing on 100% of the points or some of the revenue back to the holders? So each one is a little bit different. You'll need to do your own research to determine which ones you want to invest in. One thing we will look at is the metrics in the market and who is utilizing which kind of assets. So I think we'll get into that now. So first, let's look at, let's do Morpho first here. So this is just a dashboard of Morpho. So this shows us our lots of different kinds of information. Total deposits, total collateral, total supply, total borrow. One thing we want to look at those the top markets here. So what are people actually utilizing today? So it looks like the most utilized market today is a SUSDE DAI market. SUSDE DAI, so that's definitely the most popular. We see staked ETH, Borrow USDC, so that's the fourth most popular. And we can kind of go down the list here. So in terms of restaked ETH, we see the best pool today is the WEETH, so the EtherFi ETH. So most people today are utilizing this pool here. Next, we see just a staked ETH, and then Easy ETH would be the next one. Easy ETH, Borrow ETH. So the cool thing here is you can also see the supply rate. So the interest generated for making a deposit here in these pools. So some of these pools, the fees don't get transferred back. I don't know if it does with flash loans or how the fees are being generated, because most of the fees generated will go to the vault just depositors. So I'm not sure how they're calculating that on this. Typically, what we see on the Morpho interface is that none of the fees are passed forward currently. So I don't know if that's changed or what. So now we'll look at kind of the restaked. Oh, that sucks. The restake side. So what are people staking and what assets are people staking with? So 28% of the share of the ETH supply is staked currently. And then this is all the different stakers that we have. So in terms of actual non-centralized stakers, we see Lido's number one, EtherFi number two. So EtherFi will be your restaking, as we see here, liquid restaking, whereas Lido is layer one staking, so liquid staking. So we can look at all the restakers to see where people are putting their most deposits or which protocol they're putting their deposits most with. So EtherFi is definitely number one. We see Renzo at number two, Swell at number three, and etc. So we can kind of sort that, go down the list based on, you know, what kind of restakers that we have. So this will help you to determine where people are putting their assets and where you want to put your assets in conjunction. So typically we might see this is cool too. So stakers change in the past week, past month. So maybe things are changing. It looks like, for example, Puffer Finance has got a huge stake increase in the past week. So what is Puffer Finance doing that people are interested in making deposits? Are they passing back some revenue? Are they about to release airdrop? Have they released a point system? Things like that. So that's what you'll want to check into to try to maximize your funds, either earning through restaking or deciding which pool you want to use on Morpho. So this link to this dune will give you an idea of how you want to proceed with that. Okay, and then all our references here are available at the end of the workshop here. So we will post these here for you for your information to gather any kind of data that was posted in the workshop today. So here are those references. And then we'll just do a quick demo just of the Furucombo lending dashboard here, just to give you an idea of what our interface looks like. So when we come to the lending page, we're presented with all the lending positions that we can deposit into. So we'll just sort by Morpho Blue. So as I mentioned previously, here is the list of all the pools that you are able to deposit into. There's easily over 20 or 25. So from this list on the left here, we can see this is where our supplied position would be. So for example, if we wanted to enter into the wrapped ETH lending market, we could just simply click deposit here and then make a deposit into this. So we can choose which asset we want to swap from wallet. So we'll choose wrapped staked ETH, and then that will show us exactly how much we will deposit into the pool here. So one ETH in this example. So once we make a deposit, it'll show our supply balance. It'll show us our deposit APY, and then we can borrow from that. Again, up to 94.5 loan to value ratio, and our cost of borrowing would be 2.44%. So this would be a really good candidate for looping, because typically we see a staked ETH asset is going to be worth more than wrapped ETH. We will see this increase into perpetuity unless something happens with the staked ETH. Again, we see almost, I believe, 30% of the market in staked assets now, staked ETH. So that would be a massive blow to the ecosystem if something did happen to the price of staked ETH. So typically we see this, I don't want to say it's safe, low risk, but we are definitely medium to low risk in this now. So this is a good strategy to take advantage of the looping, borrowing, and earn yourself a higher APY. But again, all these assets are listed here. This one's at 86% loan to value ratio. This one earns you a 3.18% per deposit, but costs you 7.18% to borrow here. So this would be, if you want to do a stablecoin pair, typically we see stablecoin borrowing is a lot higher in terms of APY cost. So this could be a decent candidate for you or could not be. So this one, for example, wrapped BTC, this is a 17% cost of borrowing. So this one, for example, is substantially higher cost of borrowing, and it may not be good for you. So another feature we added is the open position function. So now you can leverage up to some amount without having to just deposit and then perform some other trading action after. You can now one-click directly into it. So the open position function allows you to leverage right off the bat. So I'll just quickly brief on that once the interface reloads here. Okay, so here's our Morpho Blue open position. We can choose which asset we want to pay into it. So we'll choose wrapped ETH for this one. Since I don't have any funds, nothing will populate. And then we can choose what asset we want to go long into. So we, for example, will pay an ETH. We'll open a position with staked ETH. Now this is at a 1x leverage. This is going to be very much the same as if I just go to deposit. But now I can choose how much of the position I want to leverage right off the bat here. So we can see and kind of play around with these values here. So at a 3x, we're going to be at a 1.28% 1.28 health rate, so that's a 20% change in the asset price. We will be at a 5% APY, and our total cost of debt here will be 8,800. So we see with one ETH, we can change our position to almost 2.5 ETH here at the long. We could go as much as 5x here. That will put us at 1.14, and we will earn a 6.68% total APY. So we can see this is a pretty cool strategy to play around with and maximize our capital. Great. So that is a quick demo and references. So if you do have any questions on anything, we are happy to help you anytime here in the Furucombo community Discord, or if you are watching from YouTube, on the comments section. So please leave your comment or join us on the Discord for more tips, tricks, strategies, things like that. We're always happy to help and share with the DeFi community, help it make it stronger. So I hope you found this workshop intuitive and helpful. And we will see you at the next one. So thank you very much. Cheers.